Two young black boys stand in line at KFC, their whispered dreams of entrepreneurship floating through the air. Little do they know, the man behind them isn't just another customer. He's Bill Gates, one of the world's most successful businessmen. As their hushed conversation continues, Gates's expression shifts from curiosity to admiration. What will he do with this unexpected glimpse into these boys' aspirations? The answer might just change their lives forever. The aroma of fried chicken wafted through the air as two young boys pushed open the doors of the KFC. Their eyes lit up, not just at the prospect of a delicious meal, but at the future they were eagerly discussing. Jamal and Tyrone, both 14, had been friends since elementary school, bonded by their shared dreams of making it big in the world of business. "Man, I'm telling you," Jamal said, his voice low but filled with excitement, "this app idea is going to change everything. We just need to figure out how to build it." Tyrone nodded, his expression serious. "Yeah, but where are we going to get the money? You know how it is in our neighborhood. Nobody's exactly lining up to invest in a couple of kids like us." As they joined the queue, neither noticed the tall figure who entered behind them. The man's presence was unassuming, his attire casual, a far cry from the tailored suits he typically wore in boardrooms across the globe. Jamal and Tyrone's conversation continued, their voices animated as they shared their aspirations. "I've been reading about these tech startups," Jamal said. "Some of them started with nothing but an idea and a laptop. We could do that, right?" Tyrone sighed, his enthusiasm tempered by reality. "Maybe, but we don't even have a decent computer between us. The ones at school are ancient, and the library's always packed." The boys' words hung in the air, a testament to the obstacles they faced. In their community, resources were scarce, and opportunities even scarcer. But their determination was palpable, a force that seemed to push against the very barriers that sought to contain them. As the line inched forward, the man behind them found himself listening more intently. His expression shifted from casual interest to genuine curiosity. These weren't just idle daydreams. These boys had concrete ideas and a clear understanding of the challenges ahead. "You know what, though?" Tyrone said, his voice gaining strength. "My cousin got into that coding program downtown. Maybe he could teach us some basics. We got to start somewhere, right?" Jamal nodded eagerly. "That's what I'm talking about. And I've been watching all these YouTube videos on app development. If we put in the hours, we could figure it out." The man behind them smiled slightly, impressed by their resourcefulness. He'd heard countless pitches from seasoned entrepreneurs, but there was something refreshing about the raw ambition and creativity flowing from these young minds. As the boys reached the counter to place their order, the tall figure behind them stepped forward. The cashier's eyes widened in recognition, but a subtle shake of the man's head kept her silent. "I'll have a bucket of original recipe, please," he said, his voice calm and measured. "And I'd like to pay for these young gentlemen's meals as well." Jamal and Tyrone turned, startled by the unexpected generosity. Their eyes traveled up, taking in the khakis, the simple button-down shirt, and finally the familiar face that had graced magazine covers and television screens for decades. You're Bill Gates," Tyrone stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Gates nodded, a warm smile spreading across his face. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. I'd love to hear more about your ideas if you're willing to share." As the boys stood there, momentarily speechless, the air in the KFC seemed to crackle with possibility. For Gates, the wheels were already turning, his mind racing with the potential he saw in these young entrepreneurs. He'd come for a quick meal, but he'd found something far more valuable, a chance to nurture the next generation of innovators, right here in an unexpected corner of the city. Bill Gates had heard countless pitches from seasoned entrepreneurs, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. As Jamal began to outline his vision, Gates found himself confronted with a stark reality. These boys, with all their limitations, had identified a critical gap in the education system that even his foundation had overlooked. How had two teenagers from an underserved community seen what teams of experts had missed? Jamal leaned in closer to Tyrone, his voice low but filled with excitement. "All right, so here's the thing. You know how our school's computers are always breaking down, and half the time we can't even get online?" Tyrone nodded, his expression a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Well, what if we created an app that doesn't need constant internet? something that could work offline but still give kids access to all sorts of educational content. Gates's ears perked up, his interest piqued by the innovative approach. He'd seen countless educational apps, but most relied heavily on constant connectivity, a luxury many students in underserved areas couldn't afford. Jamal continued, his words tumbling out faster now. I'm thinking we could preload it with textbooks, video lessons, and even interactive quizzes. Kids could download new content whenever they have internet access, but they wouldn't need to be online to learn. Tyrone's brow furrowed. That sounds great, man, but how are we supposed to build something like that? We don't have the money for fancy computers or software. The tension in Jamal's shoulders was visible as he acknowledged the hurdle. I know, but maybe we could start small, Learn coding bit by bit, use free resources online. We could even try to get some old smartphones or tablets donated to test it out. Gates found himself nodding unconsciously, impressed by the practicality of their approach. He'd seen many startups falter because they aimed too high too quickly. These boys, constrained by their circumstances, were thinking lean and resourceful from the start. Jamal's eyes lit up as he described more features. And get this, we could include a feature where students can help each other. Like, if someone's stuck on a math problem, they could send out a request, and another student who's good at math could jump in to explain it. That's pretty cool, Tyrone admitted, his skepticism fading. It'd be like having a tutor right in your pocket. As the boys continued to brainstorm, Gates' expression shifted from curiosity to genuine admiration. He'd spent years working on educational initiatives. Yet here were two young boys who'd instinctively grasped a fundamental truth. Technology could bridge educational gaps, but only if it was designed with the realities of underserved communities in mind. Tyrone's voice brought Gates back to the present. But Jamal, even if we figure out how to build this thing, how are we going to get people to use it? It's not like we have connections in the school system or anything. The question hung in the air, a reminder of the many obstacles they faced. Jamal's enthusiasm dimmed slightly, but he squared his shoulders. We'll figure it out, man. Maybe we can start with our school, show it to some teachers. If it really helps kids learn, word will spread, right? Gates felt a surge of respect for their determination. Despite the long odds, these boys weren't just dreaming. They were planning, strategizing, and refusing to be deterred by the very real challenges ahead. You know what? Tyrone said, a slow smile spreading across his face. Let's do it. Even if it takes us years, even if we have to learn everything from scratch, this could really make a difference for kids like us. As the boys sealed their pact with a fist bump, Gates made a mental note. He'd come to KFC for a quick meal, but he'd found something far more valuable. A reminder of the untapped potential in communities often overlooked by the tech world. And as Tyrone began to share his own entrepreneurial aspirations, Gates leaned in, eager to hear what other surprises these young visionaries had in store. You think an app is hard? Try building a whole center with no money, Tyrone challenged, his voice a mix of frustration and determination. What could drive a teenager to take on such a monumental task, and how might it reshape their entire neighborhood? Tyrone's eyes lit up as he began to outline his vision. I'm talking about a place where kids like us can actually learn the skills we need to succeed. Not just coding, but business planning, marketing, even public speaking. A real youth tech center right in the heart of our community. Gates listened intently, his mind already calculating the potential impact of such an initiative. He'd seen firsthand how access to technology and mentorship could transform lives, but he'd rarely encountered someone so young with such a comprehensive plan. The problem is, Tyrone continued, his enthusiasm dampening slightly. Nobody wants to invest in our neighborhood. They see the rundown buildings and the crime stats, and they write us off. But they don't see the talent, the drive we have. Jamal nodded in agreement, his expression serious. It's like we're invisible, man. All these tech companies talk about diversity, but when it comes to actually supporting communities like ours, they're nowhere to be found. Gates felt a pang of guilt at this. Despite his foundation's efforts, he knew there were still vast disparities in access to technology and education. Tyrone's words were a stark reminder of the work that remained to be done. But imagine if we could pull it off. Tyrone said, his voice gaining strength. "We could offer after-school programs, weekend workshops, maybe even partner with local businesses for internships. It wouldn't just be about learning to code. It'd be about showing kids in our neighborhood that there's a future in tech for people who look like us." The potential ripple effects were clear. A center like this could provide not just skills, but hope and direction to a community often overlooked by the tech industry. Gates found himself mentally reviewing successful youth entrepreneurship programs he'd encountered. The data was promising. When given the right support and resources, young people from underserved communities often outperformed their more privileged peers in terms of innovation and determination. The hardest part would be getting started, Jamal mused, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We'd need a space, computers, teachers." Tyrone nodded, acknowledging the challenge. "Yeah, and that's not even counting ongoing costs. But you know what? I've been doing some research. There are grants out there for youth-led initiatives. Maybe we could start small, prove our concept, and then scale up." Gates felt a surge of admiration for their resourcefulness. These boys weren't just dreaming. They were strategizing, considering angles that many adult entrepreneurs overlooked. He began to formulate a plan of his own, wondering how he could support this vision without overshadowing their initiative. "It won't be easy," Tyrone admitted, his voice quiet but resolute. "We'll probably face a lot of rejection, a lot of doors slammed in our faces. But if we can make this happen, it could change everything for kids in our neighborhood." Jamal reached out, clasping his friend's shoulder. "Then we do it. Step by step, however long it takes. We owe it to our community to try." As the boys reaffirmed their commitment, Gates felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He had the power to make their dream a reality with a single phone call. But would that be the right move? Would an influx of external support rob these young visionaries of the valuable lessons learned through struggle and perseverance? As he wrestled with this internal conflict, Gates realized that his next decision could profoundly shape not just these boys' futures, but potentially the future of an entire community. Gates stood motionless, his mind racing with the weight of potential consequences. The boys' passionate discussion had stirred something within him, a mix of admiration and responsibility that he couldn't easily shake off. Their raw talent and determination reminded him of his own early days, tinkering with computers in a garage, dreaming of changing the world. He glanced around the bustling KFC, the smell of fried chicken mingling with the low hum of conversation. How different this setting was from the corporate boardrooms he usually inhabited. Yet here he stood, faced with a decision that could alter the course of these young lives forever. Gates thought back to his own mentors, the teachers and industry veterans who had guided him through the tumultuous early years of Microsoft. Their wisdom had been invaluable, helping him navigate the complex world of business and technology. Could he offer something similar to these boys? The line inched forward, bringing Gates closer to the moment of decision. He weighed the pros and cons of direct intervention. On one hand, his resources and connections could open doors these boys might never even know existed. A word from him could secure funding, provide top-notch equipment, and offer educational opportunities beyond their wildest dreams. But there was a flip side to such generosity. Gates had seen it before. Young entrepreneurs overwhelmed by sudden success, losing their drive and innovative spirit when faced with too much, too soon. Would an influx of support rob these boys of the valuable lessons learned through struggle and perseverance? He recalled a conversation with Warren Buffett years ago about the importance of earned success. "It's not just about giving people fish," Buffett had said. "It's about teaching them to fish in a way that makes them want to learn and grow on their own." The cashier's voice cut through his thoughts. "Next, please." Gates stepped forward, his decision crystallizing. He wouldn't reveal his identity, not yet. But he could offer a nudge, a small push in the right direction that might set these young visionaries on a path to success. As he placed his order, Gates formulated a plan. It would be subtle, a gesture that would encourage without overwhelming. He thought about the power of belief, how a single act of kindness or support could ignite a spark of confidence in young minds. The boys behind him continued their animated discussion, oblivious to the life-changing moment unfolding before them. Gates felt a surge of excitement, reminiscent of the early days of coding, when a solution would suddenly become clear after hours of struggle. He turned to the cashier, his voice low but clear. "I'd like to do something for those young men behind me," he began, careful to keep his tone casual. The cashier's eyes widened slightly, sensing the unusual nature of the request. As Gates outlined his plan, he felt a sense of anticipation building. This small act could be the catalyst these boys needed, a validation of their dreams and aspirations. It wouldn't solve all their problems or remove the obstacles in their path, but it might give them the boost of confidence necessary to keep pushing forward. The cashier nodded, a smile of understanding spreading across her face. As she processed Gates's request, he felt a sense of satisfaction. He may have come to KFC for a quick meal, but he was leaving with something far more valuable: the opportunity to nurture the next generation of innovators, right here in an unexpected corner of the city. With his order complete and his plan in motion, Gates stepped aside, ready to watch the next chapter of this unexpected encounter unfold. The smell of fried chicken wafted through the air as Bill Gates stepped up to the counter. His eyes darted briefly to the two young boys behind him, their animated conversation still echoing in his mind. With a subtle smile, he turned to the cashier. "I'd like to place my order, please," Gates began, his voice calm and measured. "And I have an unusual request." The cashier, a young woman with a name tag that read Sarah, looked at him curiously. "Of course, sir. What can I do for you?" Gates leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I'd like to pay for the meals of the two young men behind me, anonymously if possible." Sarah's eyebrows rose, her expression a mix of confusion and intrigue. It wasn't every day that someone asked to pay for strangers' meals, let alone without taking credit for the gesture. She glanced past Gates at the two boys, then back at him. Sure," she said, her voice uncertain. "But how should I explain it to them?" Gates considered this for a moment. He needed to word this carefully to maintain his anonymity, while still providing the encouragement he hoped to offer. "Just tell them it's from someone who overheard their conversation and was impressed by their ideas and determination." As Sarah nodded, processing the request, Gates reached for a napkin and a pen from the counter. He began to write, his hand moving swiftly across the paper. The act of anonymous giving had always fascinated him. Studies had shown that such gestures often created a ripple effect of kindness, inspiring recipients to pay it forward. More importantly, anonymity allowed the focus to remain on the act itself rather than the giver. Gates paused, considering his words carefully. He wanted to offer encouragement and opportunity without overwhelming the boys or raising suspicions about his identity. The note needed to be a gentle nudge, a spark to ignite their passion and drive them forward. Sarah watched curiously as Gates finished writing. The unusual situation had drawn the attention of a few nearby customers, their eyes darting between the billionaire and the oblivious teenagers behind him. "Here," Gates said, folding the napkin and handing it to Sarah along with his credit card. "Please give this to them with their order, and remember, not a word about who it's from." Sarah nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Of course, sir. Your secret's safe with me." As Gates stepped aside to wait for his own order, he felt a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. Would this small gesture make a difference? Would it provide the boost these young entrepreneurs needed to pursue their dreams? He watched as Sarah called the boys to the counter, their faces lighting up with surprise as she explained their meals had been paid for. Their expressions shifted from confusion to excitement as she handed them the folded napkin along with their food. Gates turned away, forcing himself not to watch as they read his message. He had done what he could, offering a small but potentially significant push in the right direction. Now it was up to them to take the next step. As he collected his own order and made his way to the exit, Gates couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. In this unexpected encounter, he had glimpsed the future of innovation, not in a high-tech lab or a Silicon Valley startup, but in the determined eyes of two young dreamers in a KFC. Whatever came next, he knew he had witnessed something special. Gates had faced countless pivotal moments in his career, but none quite like this. As he carefully chose his words, he couldn't help but wonder, could a hastily scribbled note in a KFC be the catalyst for the next technological revolution? With practiced hands, Gates smoothed out the napkin on the counter. His pen hovered for a moment before touching the paper. The message needed to strike a delicate balance, encouraging without overwhelming, intriguing without revealing too much. To the young innovators with big dreams, he began. Gates paused, considering his next words carefully. He wanted to offer more than just platitudes. These boys deserved concrete support, a real chance to turn their ideas into reality. Your conversation about creating an educational app and a community tech center caught my attention, he continued. Your vision and determination are impressive. I'd like to offer you an opportunity to discuss your ideas further with someone who might be able to help. Gates hesitated. How much should he reveal about himself? Too little, and the boys might dismiss the note as a prank. Too much, and he risked overwhelming them or attracting unwanted attention. He settled on a middle ground. I work in the tech industry and have some experience with startups and philanthropy. If you're interested in guidance and potential mentorship, please reach out to the email address below. Gates added his private email address, one known only to a select few. It was a risk, but one he felt was worth taking. He thought about the potential impact this opportunity could have on the boys. Studies had shown that mentored entrepreneurs were 5 times more likely to start successful businesses than those without guidance. As he finished the note, Gates felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would the boys take the leap? Would this chance encounter lead to something truly transformative? He carefully folded the napkin and handed it to the cashier along with his payment. Please give this to the 2 young men when they collect their order, he instructed quietly. The cashier nodded, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Gates stepped back, blending into the bustling restaurant. He watched as the boys approached the counter, their faces lighting up with surprise as they were handed their free meal and the mysterious note. For a moment, Gates was tempted to stay, to witness their reaction firsthand. But he knew that would defeat the purpose of his anonymous gesture. This was their moment, their opportunity to seize. His role for now was done. As he pushed open the door and stepped out into the afternoon sun, Gates felt a sense of anticipation he hadn't experienced in years. He had set something in motion, a small act that could potentially change lives. The smell of fried chicken faded as Gates walked away from the KFC, his mind already racing with possibilities. He thought about the resources he could mobilize, the connections he could leverage if the boys reached out. But more than that, he thought about the raw potential he had witnessed, the kind of grassroots innovation that often led to true breakthroughs. Back in the restaurant, 2 young lives stood on the precipice of change. A simple folded napkin held the power to open doors they had never imagined possible. As Gates disappeared into the city streets, his identity still unknown to the boys, the next chapter of this unexpected encounter was about to unfold. In the bustling KFC, the scent of fried chicken lingered as the cashier's voice cut through the chatter. "Order for Jamal and Tyrone," she called out, her tone tinged with an unusual hint of excitement. The 2 boys approached the counter, their faces a mix of hunger and anticipation for their long-awaited meal. As Sarah handed over their food, she paused, her expression softening. "There's something else," she said, producing a folded napkin from beside the register. "Someone paid for your meal and left this for you." Jamal and Tyrone exchanged bewildered glances. The unexpected gift felt surreal, like a scene from a movie rather than their ordinary Friday afternoon. Jamal reached out, his hand hesitating for a moment before grasping the napkin. Its crisp folds held a weight far beyond its physical presence. "Should we open it now?" Tyrone whispered, his eyes darting around the crowded restaurant. The bustling environment suddenly felt exposed, as if every patron was watching their every move. Jamal shook his head, tucking the napkin into his pocket. "Let's find a table first," he suggested, his voice low and filled with barely contained curiosity. They navigated through the maze of tables, finally settling into a corner booth that offered a semblance of privacy. The unopened note sat between them, a silent promise of something extraordinary. Jamal's fingers tapped an erratic rhythm on the table, while Tyrone's leg bounced with nervous energy. The allure of the unknown tugged at their minds, a psychological pull that made their food seem suddenly less appealing. "What if it's just a prank?" Tyrone voiced the fear that had been nagging at both of them. The possibility of disappointment loomed large. threatening to shatter the bubble of excitement that had formed around them. Jamal took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Only one way to find out," he said, reaching for the napkin with a determination that belied his inner turmoil. With careful movements, he unfolded the makeshift note, his eyes widening as they scanned the neat handwriting within. The boys leaned in close, their heads nearly touching as they read the message together. The words seemed to leap off the page, each one carrying the weight of possibility. "To the young innovators with big dreams," Jamal read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. As he continued, the magnitude of what they were reading began to sink in. This wasn't just a kind gesture. It was an invitation, a potential turning point in their lives. Tyrone's breath caught in his throat. "Is this for real?" he asked, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. The note spoke of mentorship, of someone in the tech industry who had overheard their conversation and saw potential in their ideas. Jamal reread the message, his mind racing. The email address at the bottom of the note seemed to taunt them, a direct line to a future they had only dared to imagine. "This could change everything," he murmured, the realization settling over him like a warm blanket. The boys sat in stunned silence for a moment, the bustling restaurant fading into the background. The opportunity before them was both thrilling and terrifying. It represented a step into the unknown, a chance to turn their dreams into reality. As the initial shock began to wear off, a new energy filled the air between them. Questions tumbled forth, each one sparked by the possibilities that now lay before them. Who was this mysterious benefactor? How much had they heard? And most importantly, what would happen if they took this leap of faith? With trembling hands, Jamal carefully refolded the napkin, tucking it safely away. As he met Tyrone's gaze, he saw his own mix of excitement and apprehension mirrored there. Whatever came next, they knew their lives had just taken an unexpected turn. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt truly possible. Have you ever had a moment when your entire future seemed to hinge on a single decision? For Jamal and Tyrone, that moment had arrived. The folded napkin between them held more than just words. It held the power to transform their lives. But first, they had to answer one crucial question: who exactly was behind this life-altering offer? Jamal smoothed out the napkin on the table, his fingers tracing the neat handwriting. "I still can't believe this is happening," he murmured, his voice a mix of excitement and disbelief. "What if it's just some elaborate joke?" Tyrone leaned in, his brow furrowed as he reread the message. "I don't know, man. Who would go through all this trouble just to mess with us?" He paused, his eyes widening as they landed on the email address at the bottom of the note. "Wait a minute. Jamal, look at this." Jamal followed his friend's gaze, his breath catching as he recognized the familiar domain name. "Is that? No way, it can't be." The boys exchanged a look of stunned realization. The email address belonged to none other than Bill Gates, the tech mogul whose innovations had shaped the digital landscape they dreamed of entering. "Remember that guy who was behind us in line?" Tyrone whispered, his voice barely audible over the din of the restaurant. "The tall one in the casual clothes?" Jamal nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. "You think that was him?" The weight of the situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. Bill Gates, one of the most influential figures in the tech world, had not only overheard their conversation, but had seen enough potential in their ideas to offer his guidance. "Do you know what this could mean for us?" Jamal asked, his voice trembling, with a mix of excitement and fear. "Gates isn't just some rich guy. He's changed the world with his work in technology and philanthropy." Tyrone nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "I've read about his foundation. They're doing incredible things in education and global health. And now he wants to mentor us?" The boys sat in silence for a moment, processing the magnitude of the opportunity before them. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges they couldn't even begin to imagine. But for the first time, their dreams felt tangible, within reach. "So what do we do now?" Tyrone asked, his eyes meeting Jamal's. Jamal took a deep breath, straightening his shoulders. "We take the leap. We email him. This might be our only chance to turn our ideas into reality." Tyrone nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're right. We can't let fear hold us back. Not now." As they gathered their things, preparing to leave the KFC, the boys felt a shift in the air around them. The world outside seemed different somehow, full of possibility and promise. They stepped out into the afternoon sun, their minds already racing with plans for the email they would craft. Little did they know, their journey was just beginning. The mentorship offer from Bill Gates would open doors they never knew existed, challenging them to grow, learn, and push the boundaries of what they thought possible. As they walked home, Jamal and Tyrone carried with them not just a napkin with an email address, but the seed of a future that could reshape their community and beyond. What if I told you that a simple napkin could change not just 2 lives, but an entire community? The journey Jamal and Tyrone were about to embark on would test the limits of opportunity, resilience, and the true meaning of success. As the boys clutched the napkin with Bill Gates' email address, the potential ripple effects of this chance encounter began to unfold like a tapestry of possibility. Their lives, once confined by the limitations of their neighborhood, now stood on the precipice of transformation. The mentorship from one of the world's most influential tech figures could open doors they never knew existed, providing access to resources, knowledge, and networks far beyond their current reach. Yet the path ahead was far from smooth. The challenges they faced wouldn't disappear overnight. The boys would still need to navigate the complexities of their community, balancing their newfound opportunity with the realities of their daily lives. The pressure to succeed, to make the most of this once-in-a-lifetime chance, would weigh heavily on their young shoulders. Imagine Jamal and Tyrone, hunched over a borrowed laptop in the local library, crafting their first email to Bill Gates. Their fingers hesitate over the keys, the weight of their dreams translating into carefully chosen words. With each draft, they refine their ideas, their passion for change shining through the screen. As days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the boys' entrepreneurial dreams begin to take shape. Their educational app evolves from a concept sketched on napkins to a working prototype, tested by their classmates and refined based on real user feedback. The Community Tech Center, once a distant aspiration, starts to materialize as they leverage Gates' connections to secure funding and support from local businesses. The impact of mentorship on their journey cannot be overstated. Studies have shown that mentored entrepreneurs are 5 times more likely to start successful businesses than those without guidance. For Jamal and Tyrone, this statistic becomes their lived reality. They learn to navigate the complex world of startups, absorbing lessons in coding, business strategy, and leadership that no textbook could provide. Their success, however, extends far beyond personal gain. As their projects gain traction, they become role models in their community. Other young people, inspired by their story, begin to see possibilities where they once saw only obstacles. The ripple effect spreads, transforming not just individual lives, but the very fabric of the neighborhood. Picture a future where the once empty storefront on Main Street now houses a thriving tech incubator, filled with the energy of young entrepreneurs. The local school, once struggling with outdated resources, now boasts a cutting-edge computer lab, thanks to the boys' advocacy and connections. These changes, born from a single act of kindness in a KFC, reshape the community's trajectory. Yet as we look ahead to this bright future, we must also acknowledge the challenges that remain. Success is not guaranteed, and the boys will face countless hurdles as they build their dreams. There will be moments of doubt, setbacks, and failures, but it's in these moments that the true value of mentorship shines through, providing not just guidance, but the resilience to persevere. As Jamal and Tyrone's story unfolds, it serves as a powerful reminder of the transformative power of opportunity and belief. Their journey from a chance encounter to potential tech innovators illustrates how small acts of kindness and support can catalyze profound change, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. The true measure of their success will lie not just in the businesses they build, but in the doors they open for others to follow in their footsteps. As our journey through this unexpected encounter comes to a close, we're left with a powerful reminder of the transformative potential that lies within every interaction. Bill Gates' decision to listen and support these young voices wasn't just a momentary act of kindness. It was a catalyst for change that could ripple through an entire community. When successful individuals invest their time, resources, and wisdom in future generations, They don't just change individual lives. They ignite sparks of innovation, break down barriers, and reshape the landscape of possibility for countless others. Jamal and Tyrone's story is more than just a feel-good anecdote. It's a blueprint for how we can nurture talent and drive progress in overlooked communities. But this isn't just about billionaires making grand gestures. Each of us has the power to be a mentor, a supporter, or simply an attentive listener to the young dreamers in our own neighborhoods. Whether it's volunteering at a local school, offering guidance to aspiring entrepreneurs, or creating opportunities for underserved youth, we all have a role to play in fostering the next generation of innovators. As we close this chapter, let's carry forward the spirit of this chance encounter. Look around your community. Listen to the whispered dreams of young visionaries. And ask yourself, how can I be the Bill Gates in someone else's KFC moment? The future is shaped by those who dare to dream, and those who dare to believe in those dreams.